Thank everyone for coming to today's webinar. We are going to be demonstrating some course imports and restores and templates by Nicholas McJetters. But first I'd like to introduce Kim King, the president of NC3ADL, just to give you a reminder about the upcoming conference.
Hello everyone, I'm Kimberly King, president of the North Carolina Community College Association of Distance Learning, the NC3ADL. I appreciate Don Hazelwood and Remote Learner for providing these free professional development webinars. The NC3ADL board would like to make you aware of our 2015 conference that's to be held this October at the Raleigh Convention Center. Our conference will feature presentations on best practices and innovative approaches in distance and e-learning, as well as vendor exhibits and opportunities for you to network with distance and e-learning peers across our great state. Registration is now open. Also, if you have an e-learning concept that you'd like to share at our conference, we'd love to hear about it. We've extended our request for presentation proposal deadline to September 1st. That's rapidly approaching, so if you have a great idea, we'd love to hear it. And I appreciate the time, and we'll now turn the presentation back over to Don.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kim. Like I said, I just hope everyone has had a great start to the fall semester. This information that Nick is going to present is going to be timely for the beginning of the semester. So, Nick, if you don't mind, take it away.
Thank you, Don. Are my screen sharing at this point?
You are.
Okay. Is my slide deck up?
It is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Don. Today I wanted to spend some time with you guys. We'll be talking about mastering the Moodle copy machine. I don't know about all of you guys, but I know when I see a copy machine, I usually head in the other direction or ask the secretary on how to use it, minus unless it has a big button that says copy. If you're not familiar with using the Moodle backup restore process, I imagine you can almost feel the same way. It's lots of options, lots of different choices. So what I'd like to talk about today is kind of bundling those up so that you can use it very effectively. A little bit about me. My name's Nicholas McJetters. I'm an e-learning professional here at Remote Learner. I've been with Remote Learner for about 8 years now, 8 years this past August. Definitely I've seen Moodle grow and change. I believe my first Moodle version was Moodle 1.8.3. We were on 1.8.3, then 1.8.4 came out, so everyone upgraded, but there was a bug in the backup. So then we had to we had to redo all of those upgrades again to Moodle 1.8.5. So needless to say, I got a lot of experience just coming into Remote Learner upgrading Moodle that week. So I've definitely been very happy to see Moodle grow and change. The Moodle we have today is very different than the Moodle we had back then. I see a lot of new faces in here, so if you don't already know me, I look forward to meeting you guys. I'm actually here in North Carolina, in Charlotte. So I'm right here in NC3ADL's backyard. Remote Learner is here. We're not far away. Nobody's in India. And the NC3ADL conference and project, and definitely look forward to helping you guys meet your needs as distance learners and administrators. So let's go ahead and get started, dive into it, going inside the backup machine. A couple of things we'll cover today: principles of backup, restore, and import. We'll want to describe once you get to the backup, what a backup screen looks like, what the restore screen looks like, what the import looks like. If you haven't already used those parts of Moodle, there's lots of little options and checkboxes as you go through the wizard. So we'll take a few minutes out today and kind of go through what some of those options are. Because there's so many, you may have flipped through them and not paid too much attention to what they do. So I do want to give you guys a knowledge transfer of how to use most of those options on those screens. Followed by, we'll talk about the benefits of using course templates or course shells. There may be a reason You may want to use a course template which has existing data, or use a course shell, which I'll define as a empty course. There's administrative needs while one may be needed over the other. We'll also talk about the new Moodle course upload tool. The course upload tool is relatively new to Moodle. We didn't have that in earlier versions of Moodle 2. So if you have been using Data Hub, you can still continue to use that, but also take advantage of the course upload tool, perhaps for smaller jobs or jobs that require more of a chisel than a chainsaw, perhaps. Also, I've got a couple of tips and tricks in here that we'll talk about, definitely from your other community colleges that have had issues or doing things differently. I just wanted to take a few minutes and advertise that, give you guys some ideas of how you can use the copy machine in new and different ways. So if you are an expert and already familiar with this, do stay tuned for the tips and tricks. Hopefully you may pick up a few things there. And I have a couple of resources, and I'll take a few questions here at the end. For anyone that has any. So let's go ahead and get started. So one of the first topics I wanted to kind of discover, do a deep dive in, is backup restore versus InPort, why you may want to do for one or the other. So starting with the backup restore part, it's important to realize that a backup usually contains two items. It contains the activities within the course, and it also contains user data. By default, an admin can back up a course with course activities and user data, but a teacher can only back up the course without user data. What is user data? User data is basically information that the activities collect. So if I have a form, the form may be, what did you do this summer? The form would still be there because that's part of the activity. That's how the form was set up. But the actual responses to the form would actually be concluded as user data. So when a student replies to the form, well, this summer I went to Disney World, that would be user data at that point. Other examples of user data would be grades, because that information is associated to the user. Quizzes, that information is associated to the user. So anything that those activities collect would be considered user data. So the big takeaway when backing up a course is whether we just want to pull in the activities of the course, or do we want to pull in the activities and the user data associated with those activities. There are certain use cases where we may want to do that, certain use cases where we may not. One popular question has come up is, why can't users or why can't teachers back up courses with user data by default? Up until about Moodle 1.9, I believe a user could back up a course with the user data, but there's actually a security issue involved with that, because we don't want our teachers to be walking off with our student information. Hypothetically, they could pick up that course, take it to another Moodle site, and restore it, and carry the user accounts, grade data, and all that personal information with them. So as a result, Moodle has differentiated the two for allowing a Moodle administrator to back up a course with user data, but a teacher cannot. If this isn't a concern, you can always grant that privilege back to the teacher, either for all of your teachers or on a case-by-case basis, using Moodle's flexible permission system. So that can be handed back if you do need your teachers to have that capability. So do keep that in mind. Another pros about using the backup system is it's great for backing up entire courses or selected sections. So once the backup system begins, which we'll get into a tour of here in a few minutes, we can back up the entire course, or if there's only certain areas of the course that you need, you can kind of cherry pick those too. One thing that I do want to clarify is when using the Moodle course backup, that it's not a substitute for a site backup. So if you have hundreds of courses, I don't want you to have to try to collect hundreds of zip files to accompany each one of those courses. In that case, if you did want to back up all of your courses kind of all at the same time and everything in your site, that would probably be a good exercise for site backup. Remote Learner does provide those to customers on demand, so if that is something you are interested in, not necessarily backing up a course, but taking an entire copy of your Moodle site, do let us know and we can go ahead and prepare that for you. But if we're doing something on just a course level or smaller, a backup and restore may be the appropriate route there. Another caveat about using the backup restore process is that when the backup process begins, it also must be restored manually. At the end of that process, it takes us back to the backups backup screen, either begin another backup or restore a file. So we'll take a look at that as well. At the end of the process, it ends with a Moodle backup zip file, MBZ. These are still zip files, so hypothetically, if you were to rename it from .zip to from .mbz to .zip, you could hypothetically open up that zip file and see the contents of it. Typically, a backup file contains instructions for Moodle, some XML files, and the resources needed for Moodle to rebuild that course when you go to restore it. So we'll take a look at that as well. So flipping gears from the backup restore process into import, how is the import process different? Well, first, the import process, teachers have access to this feature by default. So while an admin might be more interested in backup restore, a teacher might be more interested in the import. So my favorite thing about an import is that it's going to combine the backup restore into a single wizard. So an import will go into another course, select elements, then take those elements and restore them into an already existing course. I like it because it's very flush, requires almost easy to use, versus a backup may require downloading a zip file, restoring it, going through that process again. Import is very neat and clean, so we can do that without having to manipulate a zip file, since Moodle is going to do all of that for us. In order for the import process to work, the user that's doing the import has to have access to both courses, the course they're importing from and the course they're importing to. So if they don't already have a role in that course, it's important to make sure they have access to that so Moodle can differentiate who can import what from what courses. And just like the backup restore, the import does allow you to cherry pick activities for import. So if you want to import an entire course, that's an option. If you only want to import smaller sections of the course, maybe we're importing a history course and we still have links to the Soviet Union, which dissolved last year, or 20 years ago. So in that case, we may want to cut out the Soviet Union part because we know we're going to replace that with New World History at that point. So that might be a scenario where you may want to use import over backup and restore, or a combination of the both, depending upon what your audience is, whether it be a Moodle admin or a Moodle teacher. So let's go ahead and do a demo right quick. We're going to just do a backup sample Moodle course and a restore Moodle course and take a look at some of those settings inside that magical copy machine that we all know and love as Moodle. Oops. Okay. Hopefully this is pretty big so everyone can follow along. So I'm logged into a Moodle course here. This is a typical Moodle course, 3-column layout. For those that aren't familiar, once we're inside the course, the actual backup for a course is going to be in the course administration menu. This is usually dropped down by default. If you are an admin, you still will have access to your site administration, but that will typically not be collapsed at this time. So once we open up course administration, we'll dive into the backup, and then we'll be presented with a number of options. The first screen is initial settings. Backing up a course is a 5-step process. So initial settings, a couple of initial settings that Moodle provides. The IMS Common Cartridge 1.1. IMS Common Cartridge, that's a tongue twister there, is basically a universal standard used between LMSs. Typically, I've seen textbook publishers publish material in common cartridges. So rather than produce a package for Moodle, Blackboard, another LMS, they could publish that content inside of a common cartridge and make it compatible across multiple LMSs. Moodle does have support for backing up your course as a common cartridge .1.1. So if for some reason you're exchanging your course with another LMS that supports common cartridge, they'd be able to get some of your course imported into their LMS. I don't see this used often. The problem is that we have activities in Moodle that other LMSs don't have. So that would be problematic because some of activities won't transfer as well and your mileage may vary. So that's a very seldom used option, but if you were preparing your Moodle course to be exchanged with another LMS, potentially packaging it in that common cartridge format may make it a little more successful if that LMS doesn't already read Moodle backup zip files. Include enrolled users and anonymize user information. Because I'm logged in for the purposes of the demo as an administrator, I do have options to include the users or anonymize user information. If I was visiting the screen as a teacher, these options would actually be grayed out, so I wouldn't be able to use either. But for the purposes of the backup, I'll go ahead and uncheck this so we can see what it looks like for a teacher. If they're backing up the course, which in that case they only have access to back up the activities in the course. If you look very quickly when I uncheck that, Moodle also grayed out certain elements as well. Because I can only, if I were only backing up activities in the course, there's certain things on this screen I wouldn't be able to back up, like for example include user completion details. Because I don't have a list of all the users, I can't back up their completion data either. So Moodle's going to intelligently uncheck that. Include activities and resources. These are part of the course, so these are fine. Blocks left and right, these can be included. Filters, if you have these configured, maybe you have a filter set up for a glossary, so when words come across, Moodle will read that associated back to the glossary, so that might be a filter setting you might want to include. The majority of these that are grayed out are typically, like I said, user settings, completion data. If we don't have users, we can't back that up. Course logs are associated to user accounts, so those will automatically be grayed out. Grade history, we have to have user data to have grades, so that can't be included in the course. And the last option is include question bank. Typically, you'll want to leave this option checked. Unchecking the question bank would make it impossible to back up the quiz, since the quiz depends upon the question bank. So unless for some reason you have a very large question bank or you don't plan on including quiz activities, ideally you wouldn't want to uncheck the include question bank option. From this screen, you do have the option to jump to the final step, but usually I like to go through these screens one by one. The next step is going to select the individual activities. This is what I was referring to as cherry picking. In my previous screen, I didn't have the user data checked, so Moodle's effectively unchecked all the user data for all of these activities since the user data is not included. But I do have options to include certain sections as they appear in my course by unchecking them or checking them as need be. In this case, I want all of my materials included in my course, so everything's checked. We also have a nice little shortcut up here, so if for some reason it would be faster to uncheck some or check all, you can flip through both of those two. The next screen is slightly redundant. What Moodle's doing here is a confirmation and review. We want to go through both our backup settings and what we checked on our previous page. I like to akin this to maybe doing your online banking. If you're transferring money between accounts, you know, which account are we transferring from? How much are we transferring? We're going to look over the summary one last time to make sure everything is what we thought it was, and then actually perform the transfer of funds. So I like to akin the backup processes kind of running along those same guidelines. Here on the confirmation and review, we're going to get our file name up here. So if we want to use a shorter file name, typically Moodle just begins with a backup, the name of the course, followed by a date and time code. In this case, it's about 11:25 in the morning. So in case you're making multiple backups of your course over a period of time, you can see which backups were from different times by looking at the timestamp that's associated with your backup. So if I might make a correction to this course maybe an hour later, so it'll be 12:25 as opposed to 11:25. So I can quickly see see which backup file I'm looking at if I know there's a backup file that was later than the one that I originally backed up from. Of course, we'll review our backup settings from the previous two screens. The backup settings, which in this particular example include just the activities in the courses without user data, followed by the included items in the course. Since all of this looks great, I'll actually go ahead and perform my backup. At this point, this is Moodle 2.8. Moodle provides a visual indicator in this version to let you know how far along the backup process is, included with the estimated time. Obviously, bigger courses will take more time to back up than smaller courses, but this is a relatively small course, so it will back up very quickly. If there are any errors or problems with your backup, at the end of the backup process, it will also show up on the screen as well. At this point, Moodle is going through the database, going through the activities, pulling that information, computing them into a zip file, also loading information that will be required for our restore here in just a few minutes that we'll go ahead and do. So we'll go ahead and give this just a moment to finish the backup. We're at about 89%, about 2 seconds left. Sometimes this does pause here. Typically, if you have a large file, which I believe this course has a SCORM package that has to be saved as well. So we'll give it just another moment. And in addition to things that can add to your actual backup time, can be if you have user data. In this case, I don't have any user data included in this zip file, so that should speed it up. But if I had a course with grades, hundreds of records or thousands of records of grade history from students that have taken the course previously, that would be additional time that the system would need to go ahead and back up the course. So once this process completes, like I said, we're on step 4. We'll advance to step 5, and we'll get a report of whether or not the backup was successful, and if not, what part of the backup failed. Typically, we can take that information, if you include it in a support case, give us a link to the course you were trying to back up. Remote Learner can simulate that backup and get that error message or reproduce that error message and make some corrections or recommendations of why that backup process fails. Typical issues with backing up courses while it's running, there could be problems with specific modules or incompatibilities. As part of Remote Learner's module review process, if you're not familiar with that, Remote Learner does take time out to run activities that you have in your course through a battery of tests to make sure that they will complete the backup restore process safely. Some modules may take longer than others to back up, especially third-party modules. So at this process, the backup has completed. In this case, there were no errors, so we successfully reached step 5. If we click continue, we get taken to the backup screen, and then we can see the user private backup area. In this case, I had my backup file. We started about 11:25. We finished here at 11:27, and this course was about 53.9 megabytes without user data. At this point, once you're in the user private file backup area, you do have the option to immediately trigger the restore. Once you click the restore button, Moodle will go ahead and open your zip file and get some important details to present to you here in just a moment of what that file includes. Typically, depending upon the size of your zip file, this can take a few moments to open. We're going to get the backup details, what's included in it, the format, Moodle 2. Had this been from an older version of Moodle, it may say Moodle 1.9, mode, a general backup. There could be other things included in the backup, like, for example, we were talking about a backup from a different system, such as a Blackboard or a IMS cartridge, so that would trigger a different mode than a general backup. Moodle also includes the time the backup was taken, followed by what Moodle version generated this backup. Maybe you're getting a Moodle zip file from a friend, so this might be important troubleshooting information if your friend is using a newer version of Moodle than you are. That could cause some issues in the restore process, which we're now in. In this case, backups and restores generally work best when it's the same Moodle site backing up the file as it is the same Moodle restoring the file. So this is important information to keep in mind as well. In this case, this is a 2.8 backup, and we also include the URL of the site that generated the backup as well. So if you have a question or you need to refer back to that site, Moodle's going to include that URL in there as well, so we can use that as a source of troubleshooting. In addition to troubleshooting some restores, Moodle's moved the same settings that was included in the backup in here as well, so we know what criteria was used to generate this zip file. This can be very important when troubleshooting, so in this case I know when I'm looking at the zip file it only includes the course. It does not include the actual restore details, the user data details. And then in addition to that, we get the specifics of the activities that are included in each section of the course. This course has just a few sections or weeks, depending upon what topic, what course format your course is using. So in this case, we have sections followed by a handful of activities, case by case, whether these activities were successfully opened, read, and being prepared for a restore. So if we continue this process again, the most important setting that Moodle then needs to know is, now that we've confirmed what's the contents of our zip file, where are we putting this zip file? Are we adding it to a new course? If we are adding it to a new course, what category do we want to restore this course? Likewise, you have the option to restore into an existing course. So if you were to trigger the restore process from inside the course administration, you could restore into that course as well. I'd be cautious with this particular dialog, as some customers have been known to restore a course to their front page. Sometimes that can happen if you do site administration, front page, and courses restore, and you're on your front page, combined with restore into this course, you could hypothetically overwrite your front page, which would not be very good. So do be mindful when you're restoring into an existing course to probably go ahead and check your breadcrumb trail to make sure you're actually in the same course you want to restore into. And then finally, restore into an existing course is an option. So if you just so happen to say, oh, I'm in the wrong course, we could specify the course here. So if I have an existing course I want to use other than the course I'm in, we could specify that course from this screen as well. So without going to other screens, Moodle does give you the flexibility, now that this backup file is open, to go ahead and create a destination or use an existing destination with certain criteria. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just select a new course and do a miscellaneous category and click continue. Likewise, we see the reverse of our settings, where before we could check the settings that we wanted to go into the backup, we can specify which items need to be restored. So in this case, if I wanted to exclude the blocks, I could uncheck that. If I didn't need the filters, I could uncheck that, and then Moodle would go ahead and just restore the activities and resources in the blocks, because maybe I already have a block format for the destination course that I plan to use, so I don't want that information to come across. Likewise, on the schema, where notice we're going through the breadcrumb trail, step 4, we have a final option here to define a course name and a course short name. If you're familiar with setting up courses in Moodle, course name and course short name are required fields. So we want to get verification if these are the same that were included in the zip file that we may want to use. This Intro to Moodle course may be for spring 2016 as opposed to fall 2015 that we're restoring to. So this will be a good location at this screen that we may want to amend these fields to include the additional verbiage that we want to be included with our course. Likewise, we get a confirmation of the activities in the course. There may be a situation where we want to take out an entire topic, so excluding Moodle modules as a topic, resources is another topic. So if we wanted to speed up our restore, so in this case, I think I'll go ahead and omit the activities and the section 4. and we can selectively choose which one of these activities or all of them that we want to go into the restore. Finally, we go into next, we get our final review page where we'll get our final report. Just as like we were doing online banking before, what's included in our course, what are the names, course name, course short name that are included with our course, and we'll get a line-by-line item of the activities. Of course, I went ahead and omitted most of these, so I have X's next to them, but if I included them in my restore, I can always include these later. So if you see an error or you decide that you want to now include these items, we could always go back to the previous screen by just going back to schema and revisiting these settings as well. So you can go ahead and click on next, complete the review, and then it will take us to our next step where we'll perform the restore and then get a confirmation that the restore is completed. For brevity, I'll go ahead and skip that, but I did just want to take you through the restore process to see that as well. So now that we have a little bit of the backup restore process underneath our belt, we talked about restoring the backup course, restoring the sample course. Let's talk a little bit about templates and course shells. The difference between a template and a course shell is that the template's going to be pre-populated with data or activities. A course shell is going to actually be empty. A reason I might want to use a template is for a common look and feel across courses. A template can, by using a course template, basically this is a course that's already laid out that we're going to want duplicated throughout the system. So if there's a common look and feel that you're interested for all your courses to have, it might be important to hand out templates to all your course instructors so that they can kind of take that template and customize it from there. An example might be if a course is supposed to have the picture of the instructor on the upper right side of the course, on the right side blocks of the course, we could put in a picture of Inspector Gadget, and the instructor will know when they see that that's where they need to put their picture and their biographical information. Then we can train our users to always look for that information on the right, so if they want to contact the instructor, that information will appear as part of the template and also remind your faculty where to place that information. In addition to using a course shell would be just blank, so we may not actually have that information available, but we just want to get an empty course so that information can be added later. Another reason we might want to use a template over a course shell from time to time is to maintain settings. In this particular example, we may have an English course which has a specific way that the gradebook needs to be set up. So rather than going to all the instructors and specifying that on paper, if I go ahead and set that gradebook up as part of that template course and distribute that template course for the English department, I have a high degree of reliability that each one of those courses, at least when the template was created, the gradebook would be set up the same way. A template is also a great thing to use when few or no changes are required between courses. So once that template is set up, that kind of fast tracks the way the teacher can set up the course, but also still remains that common look and feel as well, versus a course shell. A course shell will be an empty course without data. It allows for maximum flexibility for an instructor to import material into the shell. So if we know that the next year's history course is not going to look like last year's, that might be a reason to use an empty course shell as opposed to the template. So that way we can replicate next semester's history course without bringing in all that old data. Ideally, the typical use case for a course shell is to allow an admin to populate a course with enrollment data for batch processing. As we are familiar with Moodle, in order to in order to enroll a user into the course has to already exist. So we may have a situation where we need the course to exist, but not necessarily have any data in it. We need the course just to exist, just for the purposes of matching the teachers to the course, the students to the course, and then giving the teacher time to go ahead and edit that course and later make it available. So there could be examples where we may want to use both. So now that we talked a little bit about the template and the course shell, let's look at actually how to turn on the copy machine, get these courses running in bulk. Moodle, starting with Moodle version 2.6, there now is a course upload tool. You can access the course upload tool from site administration, courses, drop down the courses, and proceed to upload courses. I believe in version 2.7 and 2.8 it may say bulk upload courses, but the option is available under courses. If you are using a Moodle version, if anyone is, that is older than 2.6, there is a third-party tool known as the course upload tool before it was accepted into core. Basically, Moodle, by Moodle's community realizing a need for this type of utility, the course upload tool was third-party. After or starting in Moodle 2.6, that third-party tool was then accepted into core so that everyone has access to that feature as well. So if you are using an older version of Moodle, we could look at reviewing that and having that added to your older version. But if you are using Moodle 2.6 where it's included in core, this tool can be added if you do not see it under your courses drop-down menu. Once you select the upload courses, we'll get taken to a general screen where we'll actually have to select a file. We'll take a look here at the file now and tell Moodle how we want our courses to be uploaded. So this right here is a sample course upload tool file. If you're familiar with DataHub, the process is similar but slightly different. For the purposes of today, we'll just talk about how the course upload tool intercepts or reads the particular file. Because we are uploading courses, required fields still apply. So if you are familiar with creating courses in Moodle, a short name, a full name, and a category are all required. Those are the three minimum pieces of data that are required to create any course in Moodle, and the short name must be unique, and the category must be specified. So if we don't have that information, the course upload tool will fail. So in this situation, I've gone ahead and specified the short name. So I'm running 4 sections of cinema, followed by 2 sections of product placement in cinema. So the first 4 records in my upload tool are actually going to be templates because I've already specified what that course should look like. I've talked to the arts department. We've all come to an agreement on what the class and conflict course looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and replicate that section across for all of my different teachers. While we were also in that conversation, we decided to offer a new course, product placement in cinema. So I don't know if you've watched Transformers, but they've all seemed to be driving GM cars. So we've decided to offer a section on describing product placement of when you're making your new feature film, how we can use products to help fund advertising dollars into your film. So we'll be talking about product placement, but that course isn't quite ready yet. So you'll notice in the template course, I don't have that specified. Those are actually blank. So the product placement courses will be actually course shells. They won't have any data in them, but we'll go ahead and we can always import that later. The next field, category path. Category path can mimic the course hierarchy, the category hierarchy in your Moodle site. So in this case, arts is a top-level category, and then inside of arts, I also have a certificate category. So we're offering a certificate program for product placement, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in the certificate category as well. ID number is optional. I've gone ahead and included that just to have it as part of my records. If you have an ID number that you want Moodle to keep, if you're familiar with that course create screen, you can enter in the ID number. We can specify that here as well. Likewise, with the ID number, summary is optional too. So if we already know what the summary is and we want to include that as part of the course, it can be uploaded at the same time the course is created. The visible flag, very popular. I know these 4 courses, the class and conflict, are ready to go. So in Moodle, a 1 indicates yes, a 0 indicates no. So in this case, my 4 cinema classes are ready to go, but my product placement courses are empty, so I don't want anyone to see those yet. So I'm going to tell Moodle 0. I don't want those courses to be populated. And lastly, the secret sauce is the template course. So in this case, I'm going to use the short name of an existing course that already exists in my Moodle site, and Moodle is going to take this template course and create new courses based off of the criteria I've specified here. So this course will be restored 4 times and backed up automatically. So let's go ahead and simulate that now. So we'll go ahead and jump back to our class and conflict course here. And let's pull this up over here and make this bigger. And let me go ahead and zoom in for you. This looks like it's pretty good. So this is my class and conflict course. This is my template course that I have already created. In this case, I've just created a template category. So like we said earlier, in order to trigger the upload tool, we'll go ahead and do site administration, courses, and upload courses, which will take us to that similar screen. We've taken a look at that category, how that file is laid out. So I'll go ahead and feed that file into Moodle now. So I'll go ahead and do a course upload demo, upload this file. And then we're also given some options. Typically, when you're exporting this file, you'll want to use that in the comma-separated values format. I believe there are a couple of other formats, but these are seldom used. But if you are using Excel, you'll just defer to the comma. In addition, the other setting I like to see is preview rows. So what Moodle will go ahead and do is read the first 10 rows to make sure it understands what I'm asking. And then we have a couple of import options that we'll look at here on just the next page. So now that I've specified my file that we looked at in the previous slide, Moodle's going to go ahead and open that file and see what it can make heads or tails. Ideally, we've included 6 actions. So Moodle's gone ahead and read my file line by line. Each time it understands what I've asked for, it indicates a checkbox, specifies the short name, the full name, the ID number, and the status. If for some reason Moodle did not understand what I was asking for that particular line item, Moodle will indicate a status here of what part it didn't understand. In this case, it understands everything I've asked of it, so there's nothing in the status column since they're all with a checkbox. Back to that import option screen, we do have the option once we are creating courses, whether we want to create new courses or skip existing ones. That's probably your safest option because we don't get a confirmation screen when we're running through batch processing. So if we're creating new data, we don't have to worry about overwriting existing data. But there may be a situation you may want to overwrite existing data. In this case, we may want to delete courses. I don't recommend using this process to delete courses in bulk because, like I said, we don't get a, do you want to delete this course? Do you want to delete that course? So if there's courses in there we accidentally don't want deleted, it'll go ahead and delete those anyway. So deleting in courses in bulk is a very careful process, which I recommend be done as a separate process entirely, especially not while we're creating courses. We may have an opportunity, if we misspell a word, we may need to do a rename. That's an option, or reset a course. The caveat to the rest of these settings is anything that I don't specify in my upload file, I do have an opportunity to come down here and specify default course values. So for example, I didn't specify a course format. So by default, Moodle's going to specify a weekly format. In this case, this course doesn't actually run on a weekly format, so I may want to use topics format. So anything that I don't specify, Moodle will defer to these options. If I didn't specify whether a course could be hidden or shown, it'll default to show for what I select here. So if for some reason, if I don't specify a category, Moodle will go ahead and throw it into the miscellaneous category. But in this case, I have specified a category in these settings, so Moodle will go ahead and defer to these settings I specify here. So I'm going to go ahead and begin the upload courses process. And what's going to happen at this point is Moodle is going to take that class and conflict template and replicate that, back up and restore it 4 times. So depending upon how many courses you have, this could take some period of time. In this case, the last 2 courses, product placement, are course shells. So these last 2 courses are actually empty, so these will go through relatively quickly. So for replicating empty courses, those can generate very quickly, so you could create 1,000 empty courses if you wanted to. But if we're creating thousands of course templates, that would be a longer process. So at this point, Moodle's going through that same restore process. So rather than us as a person having to go open the file, click restore, Moodle's going to go ahead and do that for us. At the end of the process, we're going to go ahead and get our report card. So we have the ID number of all of the new courses, course ID 2728. These are internal ID numbers just to Moodle. And then we're going to get our status, course created, course restored, course created, course restored. And notice for these last 2 course shells, they were just created. There's nothing to restore for these, so Moodle just created those empty shell courses. And then I can go ahead and click continue, and the process will repeat. In order to see my new courses, if I go into Manage Courses and Categories, I can go into my Arts category. And then I can see in my Arts category, I now have my 4 template courses that if I go ahead and peek in, excuse me. I have my template now ready to go. Moodle's renamed it to the short name that I specified, and all my material is here in my template as well. Likewise, if I go up to my certificate category, I have my blank shells ready, but remember when I was specifying, since these courses aren't ready to go, these courses are empty. So if I open these courses, they're empty and they're also hidden. So Moodle was just creating an empty course shell for this. So this would be a good course shell that I can populate later, but if I need to, I can go ahead and enroll users now. So that way I already know who's in this course, the teacher already knows, so the teacher can begin work customizing this course, perhaps while it's hidden before the students have access to it. And this will also be a good point when I'm a teacher that I could go in and begin the import process, which from the import process, is identical to the backup restore process, but we'll go ahead and go through that wizard by specifying what options are available from what activities as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump back into the slide deck here. Lastly, I did want to talk about some tips and tricks. Automated batch processing is available through Data Hub. So the process we just did a few minutes ago involves you going into the Moodle site, feeding in an upload file. For those customers that have Data Hub set up, you could use Data Hub's course.csv file to accomplish most of the same things and upload that file through your SFTP site. If you don't know how to do that, definitely do feel free to put in a case. We can get that information to you. It is linked on the Remote Learner community site on how to do that. So if you want to connect your Moodle site to an information system, so as soon as your registrar has new courses loaded into the system, that information system can generate a file to send a Data Hub, and then Moodle can start processing those new courses through that batch processing, through that automated Data Hub processing. Periodically, when we're doing backup and restores, there could be a couple of issues when backing up or even restoring a course. Typical issues when it comes to backing up a course, we may have an issue with a specific module. In that case, you can always put in a case. Remember, it's always a good idea to back up and restore from the same versions of Moodle. So While it is possible to restore a zip file from a newer version of Moodle to an older version of Moodle, you're also asking for trouble. So your mileage may vary. In that case, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and upgrade your Moodle to match that newer Moodle's version. So do look through those screens to verify that you're close in proximity to the same version of Moodle that you're backing up and restoring to. In addition to backing up and restoring courses, while you're using course templates, there are several best practices that go into play. For anyone interested in making course templates, we do offer those services available to customers. So if you do need a course template or are looking to have some artwork done, we do have a Remote Learner does offer an instructional design group that can help you make those awesome course templates. So if you have guidelines as to how your community college image should appear, where it needs to appear on the page, get that look and feel just right, it might be a good idea to go ahead and invest in a good course template that you can begin using for a future term at some point. So if that's something you're interested in, do let us know and we can get those services out for you. If you're tired of the old look and feel, so in my courses, I've gone ahead and had the topics in the week format. There's also other formats you can use as well. A popular format, if you haven't already looked into it, is Grid. If you go out to Moodle.org and look up that Grid format, it kind of allows maybe a more tablet-like experience in a desktop-like course. So in a tablet, we have big buttons, we have big icons, so we can offer that grid where they can select a specific, rather than have topics, they can select a specific button in that course, and then all that material opens up. So if you want to organize your course maybe by assignments or by history, maybe we're going to do a course on North America and we want a section for Canada, United States, and Mexico, we could have it in a grid-like format so they can click that big button or that big image of Canada, image of the United States, and navigate through that grid, as opposed to going through that course design known as the scroll of death, where we have to keep scrolling to get to those specific elements. So if you are tired of the old look and feel while you're generating course templates, it may be an awesome idea to go ahead and consider other course formats as well. In addition, there's lots of information out there as well. I can refer you guys to Moodle Docs, the course backup, and the upload courses screen, which will talk about some of those other options we didn't get a chance to talk to. If there's a specific option I didn't mention but you did see on the screen, I would refer you to Moodle Docs. As well as if you're interested in using Data Hub, I do have a link here, and I think we can make this slide deck available for everyone to refer back to as well if you guys are interested. By going to the Data Hub, we can look into batch processing this as well, so you can bypass the Moodle course upload screen too. All right. I know we have just a few minutes left. I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Don if we have any questions. I think I can go ahead and take care of that as well if you guys want to go ahead and put that in the chat. I do appreciate everyone's time today. I hope this helps you guys generate your course templates for next semester, or if you're getting a new program started, you can go ahead and take advantage of using course templates for your next semester and term.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Nick. That was really helpful and informative. But we do have a couple questions, Nick. If you don't mind clicking on the questions tab in the little dashboard, we've got 3 questions right now.
Sure. So the first question is, can you do a poll of participants to see what their process is for retaining backups and auditing purposes?
I've already spoke to Kathy about those first 2. It'll be the next 3. Where can from Karen, Melissa, and Karen?
Okay, where can instructors change from weekly format to topics? And instructors can go into their course settings. So under their course administration submenu, you'll open up edit settings. And if you scroll down that screen, you'll see the options for format. I believe it's like the 3rd group of options down, because I believe some of those options are collapsed. So if you mine down that edit settings, so course administration edit settings, you'll see the option to flip from weekly format to topics. And if you have other formats, course formats loaded into your system, you'll see those there as well. Question from Melissa. If an instructor sets the grader report up manually by adding gradebook items, categories, and setup, is it possible to import that over to another course without performing the backup restore? The gradebook is not an item that comes through an import. In that case, you would need to do a backup restore. The import process is only concerned about the properties of the activity, not the gradebook. There is, I believe there is a discussion in the Noodle Tracker that does describe whether or not properties of a gradebook should come over in an import as opposed to restore. So let's say I just happen to do an import and included the whole course. I believe it would lump all of those activities into a flat gradebook as opposed to retain those characteristics. So I do believe there is probably going to be some work done in Moodle to address that specifically. And if you remind me or send me an email, I can link you to that discussion. But it's been a while since I've looked at that. I do know what you're talking about. But to answer your question, I'd probably recommend sticking to a backup restore as opposed to an import. How to copy, this message is from Kathleen, how to copy a specific assignment to several courses. If you have one assignment or one activity and you're trying to import it into several courses at once, I believe that you probably would need to do that manually or use the template at that point to include that as part of the course. So rather than do it on a specific one, if you have multiple ones, you probably would still need to include that as your template and then include those courses in there. Now there is the option to update an existing course. So if you wanted to do that, you could. But you'd probably definitely want to test that to make sure you get the exact results before you let loose on a couple of courses. So do make sure you have a backup and restore. But hypothetically, you could update an existing course with a template that includes that assignment, and then that assignment would then be restored into many of those existing courses. So that can be done, but definitely do test to make sure you don't overwrite anything. Angela asks, would it be a good practice to do a course upload with the action set to update and visible set to 1 to turn on courses for the semester? That is a viable method. Probably a faster method I would do is if you want to hide a course, you could hide the category. So if you have your courses in specific categories that users don't have access, by hiding the category, you also hide all of the courses in that category. So rather than do it on a case-by-case, maybe if you did it as a category or cherry-pick the categories that need to be hidden, you can kind of have them a little more granular without having to upload or feed that file. But you could do it that way too. I think it just might be faster to do it by hiding or unhiding categories as opposed to uploading files. All right.
All right. Do we have any more questions? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. As always, we will make a copy of this available, and I will get that out to you in the next couple of days. If there is anything I can do or Remote Learner can do to help you in the start of your semester, please feel free to reach out and contact me at any time. Thank you, Nick. That was very informative. And everyone have a great start of the semester, and we'll see you in about a month. Take care.
Don, what's our next meeting, our next topic?
I actually don't have that in front of me. Don't know.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.